On a stormy night in Willow Creek, four friends, Sarah, Mark, Emma, and Alex, found themselves stranded at an old, abandoned mansion after their car broke down. Desperate for shelter, they stepped inside, unaware of the dark history the mansion held. The house was eerie, with decaying furniture, cobwebs, and strange, creaking sounds. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, they made light of it, brushing off their fear with laughter and jokes. "Do you think this place is haunted?" Mark asked with a sarcastic grin. Emma, the adventurous one, grinned back. Only one way to find out. The group wandered deeper into the mansion, the sound of their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. The air was thick with dust, and the darkness seemed to close in around them. As they moved, they felt the weight of the silence pressing down, as if the house was alive and watching them. They reached a library, the door creaking open as they stepped inside. It was dark, the only light coming from their flashlights. A large portrait hung on the wall, an old man with a stern, cold expression. The friends stood frozen in front of it, the eyes of the man seeming to follow them. Emma reached out to touch it, but just as her fingers grazed the frame, the door slammed shut. "That's creepy," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. They tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. The room grew colder, the air thicker. Then they heard it, a faint sound, like a whisper, coming from the far corner of the room. The shadows shifted, as if moving on their own, and the whispers grew louder. Leave now." The voice was barely audible, but it was enough to make their hearts race. The friends backed away, panic setting in, but the shadows seemed to close in. The temperature dropped further, and they could see their breath in the air. Then something worse happened. One of the bookshelves slowly moved, revealing a hidden passageway. Driven by their curiosity, Emma led the way, the others reluctantly following. As they entered the passage, the door behind them slammed shut, trapping them inside. The passage led them to a room at the heart of the mansion. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and in the center of the room was a large chest. Alex hesitated. "This is definitely not safe," he muttered. But Emma was already unlocking the chest. Inside were old letters, artifacts, and a journal. Mark picked it up, scanning through the pages. The journal told the story of the mansion's original owner, a businessman who had tried to summon spirits. The ritual went horribly wrong, and the man disappeared, but the curse he unleashed remained in the house. Mark's voice faltered as he read aloud the final entry. "The house hungers for souls it will never let you leave." A cold gust swept through the room, and the shadows around them began to move. Figures began to form, tall and ghastly, their faces twisted in agony. The figures reached for them with long, skeletal hands. Panic surged through the group as they tried to escape. But the shadows seemed to cling to them, pulling them toward the center of the room. "Get out!" Sarah screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the sinister whispers. The door was locked. They turned to run, but the figures were too quick. One by one, they were pulled into the darkness. Mark was the last to see it, the portrait of the businessman, his eyes now glowing with an unnatural light, watching them as the shadows swallowed him whole. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside the mansion, all was silent. The friends were gone. Their screams had faded, and the shadows remained, waiting for the next group of unwitting souls to step inside. The mansion stood silent once more, its curse alive and hungry for the next victims. And as the years passed, the mansion would continue to lure others in, its whispers calling out, promising a shelter that would never be found. And so, the legend of the mansion lived on. The house waited, ever patient, for the next travelers to come seeking refuge.